The rain hammered the streets of Seattle like it had something personal against the city, turning the neon signs into smeared watercolor blurs that danced across the windshield of my beat-up Subaru. I slammed the car door behind me, the echo swallowed by the downpour, and pushed through the heavy wooden door of the Rusty Anchor, a dive bar tucked into the shadow of Pioneer Square, where the ghosts of old loggers still lingered in the sawdust floors. There he was, leaning against the scarred oak bar with a beer in hand, his broad shoulders cutting through the haze of cigarette smoke and regret, eyes locking onto mine like he'd been waiting for me to walk into this storm all my life. His name was Alex Harlan, and he grinned that easy, crooked smile that could disarm a room full of skeptics. "You look like you just fought the weather and lost," he said, sliding a whiskey across the bar without asking. I took it, the burn chasing the chill from my bones. And that's when he dropped it casual as a tossed coaster. "Never done this before. Man, I'm straight as they come. But damn, you make me want to rewrite the rules." The whiskey went down like liquid fire, pooling in my gut and igniting something I hadn't felt since the last guy who ghosted me after one too many vulnerable texts. Jude Whitaker, that's me. If you haven't guessed, 28. Freelance graphic designer scraping by in a one-bedroom walk-up in Capitol Hill. The kind of place where the rent eats half your soul, and the view is just the alley where feral cats stage their midnight operas. I'd come to the Rusty Anchor on a whim, fleeing a deadline that had me staring at my laptop screen until the pixels blurred into accusations of mediocrity. Seattle's perpetual drizzle had seeped into my bones, making every step feel like wading through unresolved grief. But tonight, it led me here, to him. Alex was a transplant from Boise, Idaho, chasing some vague dream of tech startup glory in the Emerald City. He worked odd jobs, bartending on weekends, driving for rideshares during the week, while pitching apps that promised to revolutionize how people connected. Or so he claimed with that boyish enthusiasm that made you want to believe in second chances. His hair was the color of wet sand, cropped short on the sides, but longer on top, curling slightly at the ends like it had a mind of its own. He had this jawline that could cut glass, dusted with perpetual 5 o'clock shadow, and eyes the green of Puget Sound on a stormy day, flecked with gold that caught the low-hanging lamps like hidden treasure. We talked for hours that first night, the bar emptying around us until it was just the bartender wiping down glasses with half-hearted swipes and the jukebox crooning some forgotten Tom Waits tune about lost love and rainy streets. He told me about growing up in the flat sprawl of the Snake River Valley, where football Fridays were religion and coming out wasn't even a whisper in the wind. "My old man was a rancher," Alex said, nursing his third IPA, the foam clinging to his upper lip like a secret he wasn't ready to lick away. "Tough as nails. Loved his John Wayne movies. Said real men don't cry. Don't question. Just get the job done." I nodded, tracing the rim of my glass, wondering if he could hear the echo of my own father's voice. A retired cop from Tacoma who still sent me articles about traditional values every Father's Day. I shared bits of my own patchwork life, the divorce that split my parents like a fault line when I was 12. Mom packing us off to the damp embrace of the Pacific Northwest while Dad stayed behind in the dry heat of Spokane, pretending we were all better off. How I'd known I was gay since I was 14. Stealing glances at the quarterback in gym class. Heart pounding like a bass drum in a grunge band. Coming out in college at the University of Washington had been a quiet rebellion. No parades. Just a late-night confession to my roommate over cheap ramen. Met with a shrug and a cool. Pass the hot sauce. But the hookups. The fleeting connections in apps that promised forever but delivered ghosts. They left scars that itched under my skin. By closing time, the rain had eased to a misty veil, and Alex clapped me on the back as we stepped out into the night. "You're all right, Jude. Most guys in the city are all surface, like those glass towers downtown, shiny but hollow." His hand lingered a second too long, warm through the damp fabric of my hoodie, and I felt that spark, the kind that starts as a flicker and threatens to roar. He claimed to be straight, laughed it off when I teased him about the way his gaze lingered on my mouth. But there was a hunger in his eyes, a crack in the facade wide enough to slip a truth through. We exchanged numbers under the awning, the streetlights casting long shadows that tangled our feet. "Text me sometime," he said, pulling up the collar of his leather jacket against the chill. "We could grab coffee." Strictly platonic. Of course. I smirked, shoving my hands in my pockets to keep from reaching out. "Sure, Alex." Whatever you say. The next morning, I woke to sunlight slicing through my blinds like a judgmental finger. My phone buzzing with a message from an unknown number. Survive the drive home? That rain was biblical. I stared at it, heart doing a lazy somersault, and typed back before coffee could talk me out of it, barely. "You owe me a rematch on that whiskey bet." His reply came fast, deal. "Tomorrow? Elliott Bay Book Company. 2 p.m. That became our rhythm, stolen afternoons in the labyrinth of used books at Elliott Bay, where the scent of aged paper and fresh espresso wrapped around us like a conspiracy. He'd show up in flannel shirts rolled to his elbows, forearms corded with muscle from hauling kegs at the bar, and we'd wander the stacks, fingers brushing spines as we debated Kerouac versus Hemingway. On the road's got that raw pulse, I'd argue, pulling a dog-eared copy from a shelf. Kerouac chased the American dream like it was a lover he couldn't catch. Alex would lean in close, his breath warm against my ear, murmuring, "Nah, Hemingway knew the truth. It's all about the quiet moments, the ones that gut you when no one's watching." There was a tension building, electric as the storm clouds that rolled in off the sound, unspoken but palpable. He'd tell stories of ex-girlfriends back home, Sarah with her wild laugh, Emily who baked pies like they were love letters, and I'd listen, nodding, while my mind wandered to the curve of his neck where it met his shoulder, the way his Adam's apple bobbed when he swallowed hard after a too-personal question. One afternoon, as we sat on a worn leather couch in the cafe, knees touching under the low table, he fixed me with that green-eyed stare. "You ever feel like you're living someone else's script, Jude? Like the lines are all wrong, but you say them anyway because it's easier?" I met his gaze, the air between us thick as fog. "Every damn day. But scripts can be rewritten. Takes guts." Though, he looked away, out the window where ferries cut white wakes across the gray water, and changed the subject to the mariner's latest slump. But that night, alone in my apartment, with the hum of the fridge as my only company, I replayed it, the vulnerability in his voice a hook lodged deep. Weeks blurred into a montage of Seattle summers, rare bursts of sun that coaxed us outdoors to Gasworks Park, where we'd sprawl on picnic blankets amid the rusted skeletons of old gasification tanks, sharing takeout from Pike Place. He'd bring his guitar, an acoustic beauty with nicks like battle scars, and strum chords to songs by the Lumineers, his voice rough and low, wrapping around lyrics about ho-hey and shaking off the dust. I'd sketch him in my notebook, charcoal lines capturing the way sunlight gilded his lashes, the faint scar above his left eyebrow from a childhood bike crash. One evening, as the sun dipped low, painting the sky in strokes of bruised purple, he set the guitar aside and stretched out beside me, our arms brushing. "Dude," he said, voice barely above the lap of the lake. "You're the first person who's made this city feel like home." My pulse thrummed, and I turned to him, close enough to count the freckles across his nose. "What if home's not a place? Alex? What if it's a person?" His eyes darkened. A storm brewing, and for a heartbeat, I thought he'd close the distance. Instead, he sat up, raking a hand through his hair. "I'm not. I mean, I've never." He trailed off, the words choking like smoke. Straight as an arrow. He'd said that first night, but arrows bend in the wind. We didn't talk about it then, but the air shifted after that, charged, expectant. Texts turned flirtatious. Late night ones after he'd finished a shift. "Can't sleep. Thinking about that sketch you did. Made me look like a poet." I'd fire back, "You are one. Just don't rhyme straight with fate too often." Laughter and emojis. But underneath, a current pulling us under. It culminated on a Friday in July. The kind of night where the city shed its rainy skin and pulsed with possibility. He'd invited me to a rooftop party in Belltown, hosted by some coder friends in a loft with skyline views that made you believe in reinvention. I arrived fashionably late, weaving through clusters of tech bros in slim chinos and women with asymmetrical bobs, nursing gin and tonics that tasted like juniper regret. Alex spotted me from across the room, his face lighting up like a beacon. He was in a navy button-down, sleeves cuffed, looking every inch the straight-laced charmer. But when he crossed to me, his hand found the small of my back, guiding me to the bar. "Glad you made it," he murmured, close enough that his cologne, cedar and salt, mingled with the rooftop breeze. We drank, laughed at inside jokes no one else got, and when the DJ spun Fleetwood Mac, he pulled me into the loose sway of the crowd. Bodies pressed close in the humid night, and his cheek brushed mine, stubble rasping soft. "This okay?" he asked, voice husky over the thump of bass. I nodded, breath catching, and let my hand settle on his hip. Later, as fireworks cracked over the sound, some private display from a yacht below, he leaned in, lips grazing my ear. "Jude." The words died, but his fingers tightened on my waist. And in that moment, the world narrowed to the heat of him against me. We left together, tumbling into my Subaru with the windows fogged from our ragged breaths. The drive to my place was a blur of green lights and stolen glances, his hand on my thigh like an anchor. Inside, the door barely clicked shut before his mouth was on mine, tentative at first, then fierce, all the pent-up storm breaking free. Clothes shed in a trail from hall to bedroom, his body mapping mine with hands that trembled, as if afraid I'd vanish. In the tangle of sheets, under the slant of moonlight through half-drawn blinds, he moved with a desperation that bordered on worship. Whispers turned to gasps, and as we crested that wave together, sweat slick and spent, he buried his face in the crook of my neck. His breath was hot, uneven, and then, so soft I almost missed it, "I've wanted this. God, Jude, I wanted you since that first rain-soaked night." The words hung there, echoing in the quiet, a confession that shattered the lie he'd clung to. Straight? No. Just scared. And in that whisper, I heard the echo of my own buried fears, the ones that said love was a risk too vast for fragile hearts. But dawn brought clarity, or so I thought. He stirred as light crept in, green eyes wide with the wreckage of realization. "Jude," he started, sitting up, sheet pooling around his waist. "Last night, it was incredible. But I'm not ready. For this. For labels." His voice cracked, and I saw the boy from Boise peeking through, the one who'd learned to bury truths under layers of denial. I nodded, throat tight, pulling on boxers like armor. "Hey, it's okay. We don't have to label it. Just be honest with me." He dressed in silence, the rustle of fabric louder than any argument. And at the door, he cupped my face, thumb tracing my jaw. "I will. Promise." A kiss, lingering. Then he was gone, leaving the scent of him on my pillows and a hollow ache in my chest. Days stretched into a tense limbo. Texts came sporadic, work's crazy, miss our talks, but the subtext screamed retreat. I threw myself into designs, pixels blurring under fingers that itched to touch him, and wandered queen and hill at dusk, the city lights winking like distant promises. When he finally called, voice thick over the line, "Can we meet? Need to see you." I agreed, heart a traitor pounding hope. The rusty anchor again, irony thick as the fog rolling in. He looked wrecked, shadows under his eyes, flannel rumpled like he'd slept in it. "Jude." I freaked out. He admitted over whiskeys that neither of us wanted. "Called Sarah last night." "My ex." "We're." Trying again. The words landed like a gut punch, stealing breath. "Sarah," with her wild laugh. "The safe harbor." "What?" I managed, voice steady by sheer will. He stared into his glass, swirling amber. "Because it's real. Too real. And I'm terrified of what that means." Tears welled, unashamed, and he reached for my hand. "But I can't stop thinking about you." That whisper. It's all I hear now. We sat there until last call, hands clasped across the sticky table, the rain resuming its relentless tattoo. Betrayal? Maybe. But in his eyes, I saw not malice, but a man cracking open, raw and reaching. The hook had set deep, and neither of us knew how to reel it in without bleeding. The days after that confession at the rusty anchor blurred into a haze of half-finished sketches and microwave dinners, the kind with soggy edges that mirrored the soggy state of my heart. Seattle's summer had given way to an early autumn tease, leaves turning gold and crimson along the Burke-Gilman Trail. But every crunch under my sneakers sounded like the snap of something irreparable. I'd lace up my Nikes and run, pounding pavement from Fremont to Ballard, lungs burning as if I could outpace the echo of Alex's voice. "I've wanted you." It looped, a cruel playlist on repeat, mingling with a newer track, with Trying Again. "Sarah." I'd pieced together fragment from his stories, a high school sweetheart from Boise, the girl who'd stuck around through community college and his restless itch to leave the valley behind. She was stability personified, teaching third grade now in a suburb south of the city, with a laugh that could coax flowers from concrete and a family that baked casseroles for every occasion. When Alex had mentioned her that night, it wasn't with fire, but with the quiet resignation of habit, like slipping into an old coat that no longer fit but still kept out the cold. I didn't hate her. How could I? She was the version of normalcy he'd clung to, the one that didn't demand he interrogate the whispers in his dreams. But jealousy gnawed at me, sharp-toothed and insistent. As I imagined her hands on him, the ones that knew his scars, his rhythms, erasing the map I'd only just begun to trace. Work became my lifeline. A client in Los Angeles needing branding for a queer-owned coffee chain that promised bold brews for bold lives. Irony there, too, as I mocked up logos with interlocking coffee cups that evoked intertwined fingers, colors popping like unspoken desires. My boss, Lena, a no-nonsense dyke in her 50s with a buzz cut and a tattoo of Audre Lorde on her forearm, noticed the edge of my revisions. "Rough week. Whitaker," she'd ask over Zoom, her Brooklyn accent cutting through the pixels. I'd shrug, forcing a grin. Just the usual Seattle melancholy. Rain's got nothing on this drought. Truth was, the silence from Alex stretched like taffy, pulling taut until it threatened to snap. A week in, a text pinged during my morning pour over. "Busy week. You good?" Neutral. Polite. The kind of message you send to a colleague you respect but don't crave. I typed back volumes, missing you. This hurts. But deleted. Settling for surviving. You? His reply, same. Talk soon? Talk soon became a ghost, haunting the edges of my days. I filled the void with distractions, trivia nights at the Mercury Lounge with my best friend, Theo, a barista/poet with locks down to his shoulders and a laugh that could defuse a bomb. Theo knew the score, had met Alex once, over IPAs at my place, and clocked the chemistry like a heat-seeking missile. "That boy's a walking identity crisis," he'd said then, clinking bottles. "Proceed with caution, Jude. Or don't. Your heart's tougher than you think." Now, nursing a gin fizz while he dominated pop culture rounds, Theo eyed me over his trivia sheet. "Spill. You've got that kick puppy vibe again." I caved, recounting the rooftop, the night, the whisper, the recoil. He listened, nodding slow, then leaned in. "Listen, babe. Straight curious dudes are like artisanal cheese, fancy, complicated, and half the time, they curdle under pressure. You deserve the full wheel, not crumbs." His words stuck, a bomb and a barb, as we walked home through the neon-washed streets of Capitol Hill, past murals of fierce queer icons spray-painted on brick walls. Theo lived a few blocks over in a collective house with other artists, the kind of place where rent was barter and dinner debates raged till dawn. At his door, he hugged me fierce. "Call if you need backup. Or bourbon. Or both." Alone again, I scrolled through photos on my phone, candid shots of Alex mid-laugh at Gasworks. His eyes crinkled in genuine joy, us silhouetted against the Ferris wheel at the Seattle Center. Arms slung casual but charged. Delete? No. Masochism had its appeals. Then, 2 weeks post-rooftop, my phone rang at midnight. Alex's name flashing like a flare. I answer on the third ring. Voice sleep rough. "Jude? God, I'm sorry. Can I come over?" Background noise, tires on wet asphalt, wipers slapping rhythm. "Yeah," I said. No questions. Heart already racing ahead. He arrived soaked. Leather jacket dripping on my welcome mat. Hair plastered to his forehead. I handed him a towel, watching as he rubbed it over his face, emerging red-eyed and raw. "Sarah and I. It's over. For good this time." He collapsed onto my couch, elbows on knees, head in hands. I tried. Drove down to see her last weekend. Thought maybe we could rebuild. But all I could think about was you. Your laugh. The way you look at me like I'm more than my screw-ups. Relief flooded me. Warm and treacherous. But I held back, sinking beside him. What happened? He exhaled, long and shaky. We talked. Really talked. She knew, Jude, about the doubts, the dreams that didn't fit the script. She's hurt, but free now, I guess. And me? I'm a mess. I reach for his hand, interlacing fingers, the contact grounding us both. Messes can be cleaned up or remade. He turned to me, green eyes searching, and the kiss that followed was slow, deliberate, a reclamation. We moved to the bedroom like pilgrims, shedding layers not just of clothes, but of pretense, his body yielding where before it had tensed. That night, whispers flowed freer, stories of boyhood crushes on camp counselors he'd dismissed as bromance. The guilt that twisted like barbed wire when he'd wake hard from dreams of faceless men. I thought it was a phase, he confessed, tracing circles on my chest. But you're the phase that won't fade. I held him as sobs racked his frame, tears salting our skin, and in the quiet after, I whispered back my own fractures, the ex who cheated with his best friend, the family holidays where I played the invisible son. Morning brought coffee and croissants from the bakery down the street, eaten cross-legged on the floor amid scattered sketch pads. We talked logistics, therapy for him, a queer-affirming counselor recommended by Theo, dates that started simple. Walks along Alki Beach where we collect sea glass, polished smooth by waves that knew the art of erosion. This is real, right? He'd ask sometimes, vulnerability cracking his voice like thin ice. I'd squeeze his hand. As the rain. Alex. But normalcy was a fragile construct, built on sandcastles against the tide. His friends noticed, the tech bros ribbing him about going full flannel fairy, jokes laced with unease. At a game night in a Fremont loft, one clapped him on the back too hard, dude. You're braver than I thought. Or crazier. Laughter rippled. But Alex's smile didn't reach his eyes. And later, in the car, he gripped the wheel white-knuckled. They don't get it. Hell, half the time I don't. I rub his thigh, soothing. They will. Or they won't. Your story, not theirs, but doubt crept in, insidious as fog, and our nights turned tender but tentative, bodies entwining while minds raced ahead to what-ifs. October arrived with a vengeance, winds whipping the sound into frenzy, mirroring the storm brewing in Alex's world. His startup pitch, an app for authentic connections in a filtered world, landed a meeting with venture capitalists in San Francisco. A week-long trip that loomed like a guillotine. It's huge, he said over dinner at a hole-in-the-wall Italian place in the International District, twirling pasta like it held answers. If they bite, it could change everything. I toasted him with Chianti, forcing cheer, to rewriting rules. But as we walked back, arms linked against the chill, he stopped under a street lamp, face shadowed. What if it changes us? Distance. Pressure. I've lost people before. His voice was small, the rancher's sun peeking through. Then we fight for it, I said, pulling him close. Like Hemingway's quiet moments, face them head on. He nodded. But the kiss goodbye at Seattle-Tacoma was laced with foreboding, his hands clinging as if I might dissolve. The week without him was a study in absence, empty sketches, runs that stretched miles without tiring the ache. Text came steady, nailed the pitch. Thinking of your eyes, but calls grew shorter, excuses piling like autumn leaves. On day 5, a voicemail, "Hey, Jude. Things are intense here. Investors want tweaks. Meetings nonstop. Miss you. Talk soon." Soon stretched to silence. And by his return, paranoia had taken root. I met him at baggage claim, hugging tight amid the crush of travelers, inhaling the unfamiliar citrus of hotel soap on his skin. "Rough trip?" I asked in the car, noting the tension in his jaw. He stared out at the rain-slicked I-5. "Yeah. Productive. Though." They're interested. A beat. Then quieter. Met someone. A consultant. Sharp. Knows the game. My stomach dropped. But I played it cool. "Good for you." Networks everything. Dinner that night was at my place, steak and salad. Candles flickering against the windows fogged with October mist. We ate in relative ease. Laughter bubbling over stories of SF's hills and my latest client meltdown. But as we cleared plates, his phone buzzed, and he glanced at it, expression shuddering. "Work," he muttered, silencing it. Bed was a battlefield of unspoken words. His touches mechanical, mind elsewhere. I pulled back, propping on an elbow. "Alex, what's going on?" He sighed, rolling to face me, green eyes stormy. "It's nothing. Just." The consultant, Riley. He's gay, out and proud, and he saw right through me. Asked about you. Point blank. I froze. "Jude." Told him we were figuring things out. Relief. Then anger, hot and fleeting. Figuring out. "That's us." He sat up, sheet twisting. I panicked. What if this tanks the deal? Investors are conservative. One whiff of scandal. Excuses tumbled. And I listened, heart hardening. "So, I'm a scandal? The thing you hide?" "No." "God, no." He reached for me, but I flinched. "You're everything." But I'm scared. Okay, of losing it all. The room chilled. Words hanging heavy. We slept back to back. The space between us a chasm widening by the hour. Morning brought apologies over eggs. His hands pleading as he cupped my face. "I love you, Jude. This us is worth a risk." The words, first time uttered, pierced deep, and I forgave, because love is a fool's gamble. But the seed of doubt had sprouted, thorny vines wrapping my ribs. As November loomed, with its gray skies and gratitude facades, we navigated the minefield, therapy sessions where he unpacked Boise baggage, joint walks in Discovery Park where ferns whispered encouragement. Yet cracks spiderwebbed, missed calls, evasive glances when his phone lit with Riley's name. Just business, he'd insist. But the echo of that whisper from our first night twisted now. A haunting refrain, "I've wanted this." Wanted. But what cost? Thanksgiving crept up like an uninvited guest, draped in the scent of turkey and forced cheer. The kind that Seattle amplified with its ironic hipster twists, vegan tofurkey at communal tables in vegan cafes, or traditional spreads in family homes that felt more like museums of unresolved tensions. I opted for the latter, driving south to Tacoma to my mom's Craftsman bungalow. where the walls held ghosts of Dad's absence, and the fridge hummed with the same lonely tune it always had. Mom, Elena, with her silver-streaked bob and artist hands calloused from pottery wheels, had invited Alex, a gesture that warmed me despite the knot in my gut. He arrived with a bottle of Pinot Noir and a pie from a Boise recipe his mom used to make. Apple cinnamon crust flaky as promises. "For the host," he said, kissing my cheek in the driveway, his duffel slung over one shoulder. The nerves in his eyes were palpable, a deer in the glow of familial headlights. "Think she'll like me? Impossible not to," I murmured, squeezing his hand before leading him inside. Mom greeted us with hugs that smelled of sage and clay, her eyes twinkling as she sized him up. "Jude's told me about your guitar. Play something after dinner?" Alex nodded, charm kicking in, and soon we were in the kitchen, him chopping onions while I mashed potatoes, Mom orbiting with stories of my awkward teen years, the time I dyed my hair blue for a poetry slam and came home looking like a drowned Smurf. Dinner unfolded in the dining room, candles guttering against drafts from the old windows, the table groaning under roast bird, cranberry relish, and green beans almondine. Conversation flowed easy at first, Alex regaling with tales of his rancher dad teaching him to ride bareback, Mom countering with my failed attempt at skateboarding that ended in a sprained wrist and a lifelong aversion to wheels. Laughter bridged the gaps, but as plates cleared, the questions turned probing. "So, Alex," Mom said, pouring seconds on wine, "what's your story with my boy? He doesn't let just anyone in." He glanced at me, fork pausing midair, and I held my breath. "Jude's. He's like coming home after a long road trip. Steady. Real. Makes me want to be better." The words landed soft, sincere, and Mom beamed, clinking glasses. But later, washing dishes side by side, she pulled me aside. "He's got depth. That one. But watch the shadows in his eyes. Mijo. Love's not just the light." Her words echoed as we drove back north that Sunday, the Narrows Bridge arching like a silver promise over the ink-dark water. Alex was quiet, hand on my knee, thumb tracing absent patterns. "Your mom's great." Felt. "Normal." I snorted. "Normal's overrated." "But yeah, she's a keeper." Silence stretched. Then he added, "Riley called while you were out getting wood for the fire. Deal's moving forward." They're in. Pride swelled, mixed with that old twinge. "That's huge." "Celebrate." He smiled, but didn't crinkle his eyes. "Soon." Swamped with revisions. December dawn crisp, the city stringing lights along the waterfront like veins of hope. Christmas markets in Pike Place hawking ornaments and mulled wine that steamed with spiced nostalgia. We dove into the season, tree trimming in my apartment, him cursing as tinsel tangled his fingers, me sneaking kisses under the mistletoe I'd hung strategically in the hallway. "Your trouble," he'd growl, pinning me against the fridge, mouth hot and demanding. But work's gravitational pull intensified, Alex vanishing into late nights at co-working spaces in South Lake Union, laptop glowing like a rival in his lap. I'd wait up, sketching by lamplight, until he'd stumble in, tie loosened, kissing apologies onto my collarbone. "Missed you," he'd murmur, but exhaustion laced his voice, and our lovemaking turned frantic, a race against the dawn. The breaking point came mid-month, a Friday when snow, rare and fleeting for Seattle, dusted the streets like powdered sugar on a bitter pill. I'd planned a surprise, reservations at the Pink Door, that Italian gym in Post Alley with accordion music and hidden gardens. Dressed in slacks and a cashmere sweater Mom had knit, I waited at the bar, nursing a Negroni, the clock ticking past 7, 8, 9. Text at 9:47, stuck at office. Pitch deck crisis. Rain check. Rage simmered, cold and clarifying. I paid the tab, stepped into the flurry, and walked miles, it felt, through slush-slick sidewalks to his co-working spot, a glass monolith where dreams were forged in code. He was there, in a corner conference room, door ajar, laughing low with Riley, a lean figure in horn rims and a fitted vest, dark hair slicked, gestures animated. They leaned close over a tablet, shoulders brushing, and when Riley's hand lingered on Alex's arm, the world tilted. I froze in the hall, unseen, heart hammering a dirge. Outside, snow melting to tears on my cheeks. I hailed a rideshare. The driver's small talk, a buzz I ignored. Home. I paced. Phone clutched like a grenade. When he buzzed up at midnight, reeking of scotch and excuses, traffic was hell, I unloaded. Saw you. With him. Laughing like I'm the punchline, his face crumpled, denial flickering then dying. Jude, it's not. Riley's just a colleague, but the lie hung limp, and he sank to the couch, head in hands. Okay. Fine. There's something. Confusion. He gets this world. The pressure. Flirted. Yeah. But I stopped it. Stopped it. My voice rose, cracking. Or just paused. Words flew. Accusations of using me as a safe harbor while testing straighter waters. Him countering with pleas of lost boy from Idaho. Terrified of the queer abyss. I love you, he shouted. Standing. Fists clenched. But this life, it's swallowing me. The app. The investors. They want the straight Alex. The safe bet. And on the risk, I shot back. Chest heaving. The thing you whisper about in the dark but deny in the light. Silence fell, heavy as the snow piling outside. And in it, I saw the truth. He was still claiming straight. To them. To himself. And our nights were just borrowed time. He left at dawn. Bag packed hasty. A note on the counter. Needs space. To figure this out. Forgive me. The door click echoed like a final whisper, and I curled on the bed, inhaling his scent on the pillows, sobs racking until exhaustion claimed me. Waking to gray light, I called Theo, voice muffled in tears. Bar. Now, the mercury was mercifully empty. Holiday, slump, leaving stools vacant. And over black coffee, laced with whiskey, I spilled it all, the flirtation witnessed, the fight, the flight. Theo listened, arm around my shoulders, then hailed the bartender for shots. Fuck him. Jude. You're the whole damn story. Not a subplot, but grief doesn't yield to platitudes. Days blurred, canceled client meetings. Runs that left me gasping. Sketches torn and trashed. Mom called, sensing the fracture. Invited me south for New Year's. But I declined, pulling up instead with takeout pho and binge watches of Queer as Folk. The characters' raw passions a mirror to my ache. Christmas came and went. Unopened gifts under the tree like unanswered prayers. On the 26th, a package arrived, Alex's. Forwarded from Boise Days, a leather-bound journal. Pages filled with lyrics he'd strummed for me. The last entry dated our last good night. Jude's eyes hold the road, not taken. Don't let fear be the driver. Tears blurred ink. And I wrote back, not a text, but a letter, sealed with wax like old-world confessions. You whispered truth once. Now live it. Well, let me go for good. Mailed it. Address from his wallet. And waited, breath held against the winter wind. Response came via email. Formal as a resignation. Got your letter. In therapy. Really trying. Riley was a mistake. A panic. But I need time. Alone. Be well. Jude. Closure. Or the illusion. I deleted his number. Blocked the ache. And stepped into January's brutal cold. Vowing reinvention. Yet echoes lingered that whisper. A ghost in my mind. Pulling strings even as I cut them. Seattle's rains resumed. Washing streets clean. And I walked them. Head high. Heart scarred but beating. Healing wasn't linear. But it started with one step. One breath. Away from the man who'd claimed straight but whispered my name like salvation. January in Seattle is a masterclass in endurance. The sky's a seamless slate that presses down until you either break or build calluses against the gloom. I chose the latter, or tried to, layering on routines like armor. Dawn yoga classes at a studio in Fremont where instructors with tribal tattoos led flows that twisted body and doubt into temporary knots. Afternoon shifts picking up freelance gigs at a co-op in Ballard. Designing posters for indie bands whose lyrics screamed the anthems I needed but couldn't sing. Nights belonged to Theo's collective. Crashing poetry slams where words were weapons. Hurled against the stage lights like Molotovs of truth. The first reading after the breakup was raw. My turn at the mic, a confession disguised as verse. Lines about green-eyed storms and whispers that cut deeper than silence. The crowd, misfits in beanies and Doc Martens, snapped approval. But it was Theo's nod from the back. Fierce and unwavering. That steadied me. That's my boy, he said later. Over late-night falafel at a truck parked under the Aurora Bridge. Bleed it out. Art's the best revenge. Revenge wasn't the goal. Though. Acceptance was. Slippery as wet cobblestones on Queen Inn. I journaled in the leather book Alex had sent. Pages filling not with rage, but reckonings. The patterns I'd ignored. His hesitations chalked up to charm. My own eagerness to play savior. Casting him as the prodigal in my personal redemption arc. Therapy helped. A counselor named Marcus. Black and broad-shouldered. With a voice like aged bourbon that coaxed truths without force. Love isn't a project. Jude, he'd say in our sessions via video. His office bookshelves a testament to Baldwin and Lord. It's a mirror. What do you see when it's shattered? Shards. Mostly. A man who'd built walls from fear. Mine reinforced by exes who'd fled at the first queerquake. But glints of gold emerged too. The resilience Mom had instilled with her clay hands. Shaping messes into vessels. The community Theo embodied. A tapestry of chosen family that held without asking for perfection. February brought Valentine's. That Hallmark trap laced with thorns. And I dodged it masterfully, a solo hike in the Olympics. Boots crunching snowpack along trails where evergreens whispered secrets to the wind. At Hurricane Ridge, the world fell away, peaks jagged against a rare blue sky. My breath fogging in the thin air like unspoken prayers. I sat on a log, thermos of tea steaming, and let the vastness swallow the echo. I wanted you. It faded, not gone but distant, a radio static tuned to a new frequency. Back in the city, spring teased with crocuses pushing through mulch in the arboretum. And with it came opportunity. Lena offered a full-time role at the agency. Remote-friendly, but with office days that promised structure. "You're too good to freelance scraps," she said over lunch at a vegan spot in the Central District, her fork spearing kale like punctuation. "And frankly, kid, you need the stability." I accepted. The paycheck a bomb. The team, a mix of queer creatives and allies, a reminder that worlds existed beyond one man's storm. Social life bloomed tentative, a date with Kai, a barista from Theo's cafe with inked sleeves of cherry blossoms and a smile that crinkled his whole face. We met at a speakeasy in Capitol Hill, Jazz humming low, his knee brushing mine under the bar. Conversation flowed, his love for haiku, my sketches, and when he leaned in for a kiss at evening's end, tentative and sweet, I didn't pull away. But as we parted, his hand and mine warm against the chill, Alex's ghost flickered, green eyes in the shadows. That crooked grin. Kai deserved more than echoes. I walked him home, hugged goodbye, and filed it under promising, but paused. Alex's radio silence held, a mercy or a wound, until March, when a mutual friend, a coder named Mia from his pitch nights, texted, ran into Alex at a networking thing. "He asked about you. Looks rough, but says he's owning his shit. Thought you should know." I stared at the message, thumb hovering, then replied, "Thanks. Appreciate the heads up." No outreach. Though temptation clawed, instead, I channeled it into a series of portraits for the agency's Queer Youth Initiative. Faces of trans kids and non-binary teens captured in charcoal and color. Eyes fierce with unapologetic light. One evening, as rain pattered my window like impatient fingers, Mom called. "Jude, pack a bag. Spring break, you're coming to help with the garden." No room for argument. Her voice brooked none. Tacoma welcomed me with open arms and open soil. Mom's backyard a riot of planned chaos. Raised beds for tomatoes and herbs. A new arbor for climbing roses. We worked side by side, knees muddied, her humming old Joan Baez tunes while I turned earth. The rhythm meditative. Over dinners of fresh salads and grilled salmon from the market, she probed gently. "Healing's like this soil. Mijo dark, messy, but fertile if you let it." I nodded. "Forking lettuce." "Trying. Dated someone. Nice guy." Her eyes sharpened. And, it's different. Lighter. She squeezed my hand. "Good. You deserve the sun. Not just storms." A letter arrived midweek. Forwarded from my old P.O. box, Alex's handwriting. Looping and familiar. "Jude, I won't ask forgiveness. Just wanted you to know, came out to my folks." Dad hung up, but Mom called back. Said she'd always suspected. Riley's out of the picture, apps funded, but without soul. It felt hollow. Miss your light. Always will. Be happy. Tears pricked. Not salt, but release. And I burned in the fire pit that night. Ashes swirling like freed confessions. April unfurled with cherry blossoms carpeting the U District. And I dove deeper into community, volunteering at a shelter in Pioneer Square, serving meals to queer youth weathering the streets. Their stories, resilience forged in fire, mirrored mine, and in their laughs over shared plates, I found fragments of self rebuilt. Kai, and I tried again. Coffee turning to concerts at the Tractor Tavern, his head on my shoulder during sets by local folk acts. Kisses deepened, hands exploring with permission. And one night, in his apartment, overlooking the locks where boats rose and fell like breaths, we tumbled into bed. His touch was gentle, exploratory, no whispers of want but quiet affirmations. This feels right. Afterward, curled against him, the echo muted to a hum, drowned by the salmon's splash outside. Yet May brought a curveball. Alex, at a gallery opening in Sodo for my agency's youth exhibit. He stood before my portraits, suit rumpled, eyes red-rimmed. "Jude," he said as I approached, voice a rasp. "These are powerful. You always saw people." Tension crackled, but I held steady. "Thanks. How've you been?" "Honest," he replied, a ghost of a smile. "Therapy. Dates, awkward ones. Learning to stand in my truth. A beat. Proud of you. No please. Just acknowledgement." And as he walked away, the air lightened, chains loosening. Summer solstice approached. Longest day, shortest on grudges. And I felt it, the shift from survival to thriving. Kai planned a getaway to the San Juans. Ferries cutting blue water. And as we packed, Theo toasting over beers. To new chapters, I raised my glass. The whisper echoed still, a scar's faint throb. But now it sang of growth, not loss. Straight claims shattered, truths unearthed. And in the debris, Jude Whittaker emerged whole, whispering his own name into the wind. June's sun lingered late over the Salish Sea, gilding the waves as Kai and I boarded the ferry from Anacortes, the vessel groaning like an old friend settling into routine. He leaned against the rail, wind tousling his dark hair. A picnic basket at our feet stocked with cheeses and baguette from a market stall. "Ever feel like the world's conspiring for joy?" he asked, lacing fingers with mine, his skin warm against the salt spray. I smiled, genuine, the kind that reached my eyes without coaxing. Starting to, the islands rose like emerald exclamation points. Orcas, with its craggy peaks, Lopez, all gentle farms and bike paths. We disembarked on San Juan, renting a cabin perched on a bluff overlooking Friday Harbor. Windows framing sunsets that bled orange into indigo. Days melted into idyll, kayaking coves where seals bobbed curious heads, their whiskers twitching like questions, evenings on the deck with wine and ukulele. Kai strumming tunes that evoked Hawaiian shores he'd left behind in childhood. Nights were revelations, bodies sinking slow, his laughter bubbling as we traced freckles and scars. No ghosts invited. "You're present," he murmured once. Post-climax glow painting us in moonlight. "Like you've shed a skin." I kissed his temple, tasting salt. Learning, too. Vulnerability flowed easier with him. Conversations dipping into depths without dredging old wrecks. His immigrant parents' quiet pride in his barista artistry. My mom's pottery as metaphor for mending. Back in Seattle, the glow sustained, weaving into the city's summer pulse. Street fairs in Fremont with solstice parades of flaming effigies. Berries bursting from farmers' markets like secrets too ripe to hold. Work thrived. My youth portraits caught a local mag's eye, leading to a solo show at a gallery in Pioneer Square. walls lined with faces that stared back defiant. Opening night buzzed, Theo in a thrift store tux. Mom flown in with clay dust on her boots. Kai at my side in linen shirt, hand steady on my lower back. Alex appeared in the crowd, uninvited but not unwelcome, nursing a club soda by the cheese board. Our eyes met across the room. A nod exchanged, civil, charged with history's weight. He approached as the throng thinned, congratulating with sincerity. They breathe. Jude, you got a gift. Kai, sensing the undercurrent, excused himself gracefully, and we talked brief, boundaries firm. Dating someone? I asked, noting the ease in his stance. Yeah. A teacher from Everett. Slow, but real. Relief for him. A mirror to my own. Good. You deserve that. He lingered a moment, green eyes softer. You too. That guy. He looks at you like you're the horizon. A hug. Brief and brotherly. Then gone. The door chiming shut like a period on a sentence long overdue. July scorched mild. Heat waves rippling off asphalt, driving us to the pools in Green Lake where bodies splash carefree. Kai and I joined pickup volleyball games. Since sticking to sweat-slick skin, his dives earning cheers that tangled with mine. Post-game beers at a lakeside shack led to deeper shares, his coming out at 16. A family rift mended over time, my college whispers evolving to roars. We balance, he said one dusk. Toes in the water. Your depth. My drift. But life's undercurrent stirred. Lena announced retirement. The agency shifting to a younger helm. And I vied for creative director. Portfolios polished like talismans. Nerves frayed. But Kai's pep talks, haiku scrawled on post-its, storms pass. Roots hold fast, grounded me. The interview, in a sunlit conference room overlooking the sound, flowed like a well-rehearsed scene. By week's end, the offer came, lead with equity, a corner office optional. Celebration spilled into August. A road trip south on Highway 101. Coastal cliffs plunging to surf that roared approval. Stops in Astoria for fresh Dungeness crab. Cannon Beach where Haystack Rock loomed sentinel. Nights in motels with creaky beds and ocean lullabies. In a tidda pool, poking at anemones with sticks, Kai turned serious. Jude, this feels like home. Want to make it official? Move in. Heart stuttered. Not from fear, but fullness. Yes. Laughter bubbled, sealing it with salt-kissed lips. The Pacific witness to our vow. Fall crept in with equinox winds, stripping leaves to reveal bones. Kai's apartment in Wallingford became ours, my sketches mingling with his ceramics. Bookshelves groaning under shared worlds. Domesticity suited. Mornings of shared showers and coffee grinds. Evenings cooking stir-fries while podcasts droned on identity and art. Theo dubbed us the soft launch of forever, hosting housewarmings with craft brews and charcuterie that devolved into truth or dare confessions. Yet echoes, faint but persistent, surfaced in quiet moments. A song on the radio from our Gasworks picnic. Alex's guitar chords haunting the melody. I'd push it down, but one night, over takeout pad thai, Kai noticed. Penny for the thoughts, his eyes, brown and steady, invited truth. I exhaled, setting down chopsticks. Old ghost. The ex who started it all. Whispers that linger. He nodded. No jealousy, just curiosity. Tell me. So I did, the rain-soaked bar. The claim of straightness crumbling. The betrayal's blade. The healing's hike. He listened, hand on my knee. Then, sounds like he was the catalyst, not the conclusion. Grateful for the push. His grace disarmed. And we made love that night with renewed intent. Body's a dialogue of now. But the universe, ever the dramatist, scripted a coda, a call from Mia, Alex's friend, voice trembling. Ease. Had a breakdown. App launched big, but the pressure, he attempted. There, at Harborview, time fractured. I drove. Kai beside me, silent support. The hospital's fluorescent hum a stark contrast to summer's warmth. Alex lay in a private room, foredripped and hollow-cheeked. His boyfriend, Evan, the teacher, clutching his hand like a lifeline. Jude, Alex rasped, eyes lighting faint. Didn't think you'd come. Could not, I said. Throat tight. Kai hovering respectful in the hall. We talk sparse progress. Setbacks. The app's hollow success masking inner voids. Therapy's kicking my ass, he admitted. But Evan's my anchor. Evan nodded. Grateful. Thank for being the first safe harbor. Visiting hours ended. But not before Alex whispered. Faint echo of that night. You saved me. Jude. By letting go, tears tracked, and I left with a hug, the door sealing a chapter. Outside, Kai enveloped me. Proud of you. We drove home through veils of rain. The wiper's a metronome to reflection. Betrayal's scar ached, but softer now, a reminder of capacity for love. Loss. Grace. September's harvest moon rose full, and our life deepened. Joint therapy for relational roots. Weekend getaways to Leavenworth's Bavarian charm. Apple picking in Yakima where orchards stretched golden. Kai's proposal came casual. Over pie at a roadside diner. A ring from a jeweler in the CD. Simple band, etched with waves. Marry me? Not tomorrow. But soon. Laughter. Yes. And planning began. Small ceremony in the Cascades. Vows exchanged under evergreens. As leaves turned, so did I. The whisper, now a lullaby of lessons. Claims shatter. Truths endure. Love's not claimed, but chosen daily. In Kai's arms, under autumn stars, I whispered back, not to ghosts, but to the man beside me. This is us. Forever starts here. October's chill nipped at the heels of summer's memory, turning the Cascades into a palette of rust and amber. Peaks dusted with first snow like confectioner's sugar on gingerbread. Planning the wedding felt like plotting a heist, equal parts thrill and logistics in our Wallingford nest. Now cluttered with fabric swatches and venue brochures amid the chaos of half-packed boxes. We decided on a lodge near Snoqualmie Pass, the kind with stone fireplaces and trails that wound through old-growth firs, where the air smelled of pine resin and possibility. Kai threw himself into details with barista precision, menus featuring foraged mushrooms and local salmon, playlists blending ukulele covers of indie folk. Vows first, he'd insist during our Sunday brunches at a cafe in Finney Ridge. Avocado toast crumbs punctuating his lists. The rest is scenery. I nod, sketching ceremony layouts on napkins. Hearts doodled in margins. Mom was all in, offering to craft centerpieces from driftwood and sea glass. Her voice crackling over calls from Tacoma, something borrowed from the tides. Mijo. Wash is clean. Theo. Our unofficial best man and efficient. ordained online for the occasion. Hosted planning parties at the Collective, turning strategy sessions into soirees with spiked cider and charades that devolved into queer history reenactments, Stonewall raids with pillow fights, ACT up chants over charades cards. You two are disgustingly cute, he'd tease. Clinking mugs. Makes me believe in the mess again. But beneath the effervescence, undercurrents swirled. News of Alex filtered through Mia, he'd stabilized. The app sold for a tidy sum that bought therapy and time. Evan by his side as they navigated Boise visits and family men's. He's quieter now, she said over coffee one gray afternoon at her favorite roastery in the U District. Grateful. Says you were the spark. I sip my latte. Foam heart dissolving. We were both sparks. Just different fires. Kai knew the contours. Supportive without probing. But one evening, as we hiked Discovery Park's loops, leaves crunching underfoot, eagles wheeling overhead, he broached it. Heard from EX lately? Casual, but eyes keen. I paused on a bluff. Wind whipping. The sound of steel-gray expanse below. Indirectly. He's healing. A beat. Does it bother you? He shook his head, pulling me close against the gust. Nah. You're here. With me. Just. Ghosts make the best stories. But living ones are better. His kiss grounded. Tasting of trail mix and trust. And we descended laughing. Plotting cake flavors, lavender honey. A nod to his island roots. November's rains returned with vengeance. Turning wedding prep into a slick ballet. Venue confirmations amid downpours. Suit fittings in shops that smelled of wool and optimism. I designed our invites. Minimalist lines evoking intertwined roots. Printed on recycled stock from a mill in Port Townsend. Addressing envelopes became ritual. Stamps licked with names of chosen kin. Lena as Annie Figure. Marcus the therapist toasting her growth. Even a card to Alex, simple. Wishing you light. Jude and Kai. Response came swift. Honored. Sending warmth from afar. Yours in truth. A. No sting. Just closure's quiet click. Thanksgiving anchored us. A pre-wedding feast at Mom's. Expanded table groaning under turkey and tamales. A fusion of her Mexican roots and our Pacific bounty. Kai charmed with stories of Honolulu luau's. His laugh drawing her in like tide to shore. He's a keeper, she whispered post-dinner, as we washed dishes. Suds bubbling. Eyes like yours, full of stories untold. I hugged her fierce. Tears pricking. Learn from the best. December world festive. Holiday lights strung along our street like communal garlands. Markets in Westlake Center hawking wreaths and ornaments that clinked like wind chimes. We escaped to Victoria for a weekend. BC's gardens manicured against winter's bite. High tea at the Empress where scones flaked buttery and conversations turned to futures. Adoptions maybe. A house in the suburbs with a studio for my art. A garden for Kai's herbs. New Year's dawn crisp. Fireworks blooming over the Space Needle as we kissed on our balcony. Champagne fizzing sweet. To us, Kai toasted. Glasses chiming. The plot twist that stuck. January thawed resolutions into routines. Wedding 3 months out. And life layered on. My creative director role bloomed. Leading campaigns for LGBTQ plus nonprofits that funded shelters and scholarships. My portraits evolving into murals splashed across community centers in the Rainier Valley. Kai advanced to shift lead at the cafe. His haiku now chalked daily on the board. drawing crowds who lingered for verses as much as lattes. February's Valentine's mirrored our first, dinner at the Pink Door. This time shared. Accordion wheezing romantic. No ghosts at the table, just us. Toasting with limoncello that burned bright. Remember that solo Negroni? I teased. Foot hooking his underlinen. He grinned. Worst holiday till you. Best since. Spring equinox aligned with final fittings. Tuxes tailored sharp. Mine charcoal with a lavender pocket square. His navy evoking twilight seas. Rehearsal dinner at the lodge was intimate. Theo's vows preview hilariously heartfelt. Mom's toast weaving pottery metaphors into promises of endurance. Loves the wheel, she said. Voice steady. Spinning rough clay into something eternal. The eve before. Kai and I snuck away to a hot spring soak. Steam rising like prayers. Stars pricking the night. Nervous? He asked. Fingers tracing my palm. Excited, I corrected. You, same. You're my horizon. Jude. Sleep came deep. Dreams of roots entwining. Dawn of the day broke golden. Cascades awakening in mist-shrouded glory. Ceremony at noon. Under a arch of wildflowers Mom had woven. Guests in folding chairs on meadow grass. Theo officiated. Voice booming then softening. Jude and Kai. In a world of claims and echoes. You've chosen truth. Vows exchanged. Mine of gratitude for his light in my storm. His of adventure in our shared drift. Rings sliding smooth. Kisses sealing amid cheers and petals tossed. Receptions spilled into evening. Feast of roasted lamb and foraged salads. Dances under string lights to a playlist that swung from Otis Redding to Hozier. Toast flowed. Lena on creative fires. Theo on chosen families. Even a video message from Alex. Face healed and hopeful to loves that echo right. Cheers. As night deepened, Kai and I slipped away to our suite. Fire crackling. Bodies rediscovering in wedding finery shed slow. Husband, he whispered. The word a caress. Husband, I echoed. The sound of home. Months post-vow blurred into honeymoon haze, a road trip through the Southwest. Red rocks of Sedona glowing at sunset. Vegas skipped for quiet canyons where echoes were geological, not emotional. Back home, life nested, a down payment on a Queen and Victorian. Its yard begging for roses and raised beds. Yet the old whisper, that haunting refrain, resurfaced not as pain but poetry in a novel I penned. Fragments of our story fictionalized into a tale of claims broken and truths whispered anew. Published indie. Its soul modest but resonated. Reviews praising its raw humanism. A queer odyssey through American longing. Kai read drafts by lamplight. His feedback gentle. You've turned scars to stars. And in quiet nights, as rain pattered our roof, I'd hold him. The echo now a lullaby. I've wanted this. Truth. At last. Years folded like origami birds. Each crease a milestone etched in the quiet grandeur of our life together. The Queen and house became a haven. Its creaky floors witness to mornings of coffee brewed strong and evenings of takeout devoured on the porch swing. City lights twinkling below like a congregation of fireflies. Kai's cafe expanded into a chain of 3, each outpost a poem in brick and brew. His haiku evolving into a chapbook that sold out at local readings. Words and warmth, he'd say, signing copies with flourishes. The real brew. My art agency grew roots. branching into national campaigns that spotlighted queer narratives. From marriage equality retrospectives to trans visibility drives, my murals now gracing billboards in LA and Chicago. Faces bold against urban sprawl. But the heart stayed local. Workshops for at-risk youth in the Central District, where pencils met paper and stories spilled like ink, turning silence to symphonies. Anniversaries marked rhythms, first with a return to the San Juans, kayaks cutting dawn waters, second a surprise flight to Hawaii, Kai's family enveloping us in leis and luau's, his mother's hug fierce as ocean waves. Mom, ever the potter, gifted us a vase on our third vessel for wildflowers, inscribed roots and wings. Theo, now partnered with a sculptor named Riley, no relation, mercifully hosted annual vow renewals in the collective's backyard. Silly ceremonies with inside jokes and tears that tasted of joy. Alex crossed paths sporadically. Life's serendipitous weave. A conference in Portland where we shared panels on identity in tech and art. His app evolved into a platform for authentic allyship. Evan's influence evident in its inclusive code. Evan keeps me honest. He'd confide over post-panel beers. Green eyes clear. You were the start. No longing. Just kinship. Echoes harmonized into friendship's chord. But the deepest fold came in spring of our 5th year, when Kai's hand found mine across the breakfast table. Voice tentative over toast. What if we expand? Adopt. The word hung, vast as the sound. And I saw it, a child. Our child. Small hands in ours. Teaching resilience amid rain. We dove in, classes on parenting as queer allies. Home studies that probed our story without judgment. Waitlists that tested patience like a slow pour. The call came in November. Leaves skeletal against slate skies. A boy. 6. From the foster system. Foster care churned by loss. His eyes wide with wariness that mirrored my own at 14. Elias. With curls like Kai's and a laugh that built slow. Like trust. First meeting at an agency playroom. Toys scattered like minefields. He had us cautious. Building block towers that toppled deliberate. Why you want me? He asked. Direct as a dart. Kai knelt. Level. Because you're you. And we're us. Team. A nod. Tentative. And over months of visits, picnics in Discovery Park, story hours at the library, walls crumbled. Court finalization in June. Under the same Cascades arch where we'd wed. Elias between us in a tiny suit. His hand in ours as judge's gavel fell like grace. Parenting unfolded raw. Nightmares that pulled us from sleep. His questions about, why no mom like others? Answer with honesty wrapped in hugs. Families come in recipes, Kai explained one night. Stirring mac and cheese. Ours is Jude, Kai, and Elias. Extra love. Hold the judgment. School starts brought triumphs. Art class where Eli's drawings echoed mine. Soccer games where Kai coached from sidelines. Cheers booming. Challenges woven too. My father's first visit. Awkward from Spokane. His cop's handshake stiff but softening over Eli's gap-toothed grin. Grandpa Jude stories the boy dubbed him, drawing him into fold. Alex sent a gift for Eli's birthday, a guitar half-size. Strings humming potential, with a note, may it whisper adventures. As Eli grew, so did we. The whisper that started it all, Alex's confession in tangled sheets, transmuted into legacy. I wrote its evolution in a memoir. Echoes unclaimed. Pages tracing betrayal to belonging. Published to quiet acclaim. Readings drew crowds. Questions probing the human core. How do you forgive? I'd pause. Kai's hand in mine. Eli doodling nearby. By choosing forward. Love's not absence of storm, but sailing through. 10th anniversary dawned with balloons and pancakes. Eli, now 16. Lanky and questioning his own crushes with a journal I gifted, leather-bound. Like Alex's once. Write the truths, I told him. They echo longest. Kai and I renewed under cherry blossoms in the arboretum. Vows updated, through claims shattered and hearts mended. I choose you. Again, Seattle. Ever the backdrop. Aged with us, rains gentler. Sunsets sharper. Streets alive with new generations marching for rights we'd fought to claim. Mom passed in our 15th. Clay hand still. Her funeral a celebration of vessels shaped. Potters from her studio toasting her fire. Eli reading a poem he'd crafted. Kai's are my anchor. Grief carved space. But joy filled it. Eli's coming out at 18. Casual over dinner. Girls are cool. But so's that barista at your cafe. Dad, met with hugs and haiku from Kai. College bound for UW. Art major like his old man. Dorm decorated with my early sketches. Kai and I, silver threading our hair. Traveled light. Italy's coasts where pasta twirled like stories. Japan's temples for quiet reflection. Retirement loomed gentle. Agency handed to protégés. Cafe to trusted leads. Time for canvases and ukuleles. Walks where hands clasp familiar. One autumn eve, porch swing creaking. Eli home for fall break with his boyfriend, a poet with locks like Theo's. Kai turned to me, eyes still drifting like waves. That whisper, he said soft. The one that echoed? What's it say now? I smiled, tracing his knuckles. It says, you were the answer. All along, and in the hush of leaves falling, the city humming distant, it did a life's refrain. Human and whole, love claims nothing, but gives everything.